What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Cleveland Pulse YouTube channel. I am your host, Justin Harold, and with me, as always, my co-host, Jeff Santa. Before we get into this one, just really quickly want to say, if you guys can, make sure that you are subscribing, hitting that bell notification, the like button, and commenting down on our videos. You know, we've been doing a lot of Cavs videos recently, so if you want to go check those out, those are in our, our history. And we'll be having a lot more Browns stuff as we are off the bye now and going to get into talking about some of the things for the Browns as of lately for this, what is the remainder of this season. So with all that being said, Jeff, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's nice coming off the bye week. It's nice that your playoff chances increase when you don't play, albeit marginally. I still think we have ESPN's figures are giving us like a 25% chance to make the playoffs with like an 8% chance to make the division, which I'm not understanding those numbers because I think that, well, I know it's optimistic thinking, but it seems like if we don't win the division, we're probably not going to make it. It seems like the division is the best way to make it. I know there's more ways to make it through the wild card, and we probably could get more help. Like if we end up being 8 and 9, I guess we could get help and end up making it, but it's just weird that we only have an 8% chance to win the division. We're only 2 games back.
Yeah, you always see those like towards the last the two final games of the years, all the crazy things that are needed for teams to make it to the wild card and everything. And I already saw this week that there's like a way for the Browns to end up in the wild card position by the end of the week.
Because there's only a couple teams eliminated. Like the Texans just got eliminated. I'm sure the Lions have been eliminated, but it's like there's like 12 teams in the AFC that are like in the hunt.
Yeah, it's a super close race with that, like with those 3 wild card places. It's just, I think for my sanity, I would like to win through the division because it's the most clarity, obviously. But we all know that the way the Browns have been playing, that's who knows, unless something drastically changed in this team over the week, the bye week, we're going to have our work cut out for us. So with that being said, Jeff, obviously we know there are some injuries, some injury returnees, and some COVID guys. What do you want to start with here?
Well, I think we could, which I know you're probably going to want to talk about this maybe more on Friday, but I think we could get the defense out of the way. I think me and you both want to talk about the offense. Yep. It's going to be interesting, and this is why we're coming with another upload Friday. I think it's necessary to space them out because your boy, we're excited. Jacob Phillips has been activated. I think this is the only talking point on the defense. That if he's cleared to go, we'll probably know Friday. That'll be interesting. I'll be interested to see how Joe Woods uses him. They were so nervous to bring on JOK to start the year, which I know is different. He was just a rookie. Now he wasn't injured, so it's different circumstance. But his usage on Sunday, if he's ready to go, it'll be interesting.
Yeah, and honestly, going from I keep saying last week, our last game to this game, I don't know that the defense really has much to talk about other than like if we somehow got a similar performance to the last time they were out on the field, that'd be phenomenal. I would not expect that because 4 interceptions in one game is just ludicrous for any quarterback in general. So, but if they can play them well enough, that'd be great. But yeah, the combination of JOK and Jacob Phillips is something that I've been waiting for all season long, since the offseason, since we drafted JOK. Just 2 super speedy guys who, we've seen JOK make those open field tackles and be so good at it. And if you guys remember from last year, Jacob Phillips, he has great sideline to sideline speed, and those 2 together on the field, third downs especially, would be huge. So yeah, not too much to talk about on the defense. Obviously, we don't have an injury report, and this isn't really the preview. So we're going to go ahead and, flip it over to the offense and try to figure out what they can do coming out of this bye week to improve the offensive efficiency. Obviously, that's been, the biggest problem with this offense all year.
For sure. And you just check out the last 3 games, 7 at New England, 13 at home against Detroit, and 10 at Baltimore. So that's 3 straight games where we have not scored 2 touchdowns, which it's pretty impressive that we're only 1-2 in those games. And, in the modern day NFL, You're
Yeah.
going to have to score more points than that. I think what's interesting to start, which really kind of has nothing to do with what we're going to talk about, but we still have only Stefanski has still only lost back-to-back games once this year, and it was
Mhm.
the Chargers and the Cardinals. That's what's frustrating, though. It's like we don't lose back-to-back games, but we're like 1-1, every 2 weeks. So we're looking for more consistency out of the offense. There's things that we agree upon. I think me and you both agree that we need to get out. We need to get out from under center more, and that's I don't know. Let's go from there.
Well, if you're on Twitter like we are, and you see, obviously Brown's Twitter is just always active, and so you see things from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and
Yep.
even just 2 years ago from the abysmal Freddie Kitchens season, where we still won a couple of games, but me and Jeff saw one of those clips where it's Nick Chubb, and hear me out, crazy thing that this ever happened. Kareem Hunt also on the field together at the same time,
Mhm.
doing a run play, having those guys lead block for one another. Something that we've been talking about nonstop, I think, this whole year. I feel like probably since week 3 at this point, where those two have not been on the field together in running sets, and that's something that obviously last week, God, I keep wanting to say that, last game, we would have liked to see, because of the way that the Ravens had our offense pretty much figured out to a T in terms of the run game. So we all know the stats. If we don't have 100-yard rusher or close to it, we're not winning a lot of games, and you just have to find a way. We watched New England just throw 3 passes last night or 2 days ago in the Monday night game and still win their game. Obviously, they didn't win by a great margin, but again, when quarterback's only throwing 3 passes and still winning, that's a pretty good highlight. And we just need to figure out how to get our running backs going, because 15 touches isn't going to cut it against the Ravens.
Yeah, I think you saw it. Definitely, that's a good point with the Patriots. That I mean, you could just keep going to it. I'm almost hoping for conditions like that
Yeah,
on Sunday. It's terrible to say because I love our running backs as much as the next guy, but I don't want to watch football like that. But I think
right.
if there's 50-mile-an-hour winds, like I think we probably match up against every other team in the league like pretty well. So
Yeah.
it's one of those things where we're going to talk about the injuries, but we're just not going to be able to run the 3 tight ends. So that's a common thing. We love that 13 personnel. Me and you would rather have us go to, 20 personnel, 21, 22 in any way, shape, or form. I think that we're at the point where, and me and you were talking about it a little bit going back and forth. Kurt Warner puts out this video about the first half of the Ravens
Ravens
game.
game. Yep.
Watch it. It was Baker film. And it was the first play. It was the only play which it happened, but the first play of the game, Kurt Warner which it was really one of his only complaints about Baker, like in depth in the first half, is that we're under center in the first play in the Ravens game, and it's a pass, or it was the first pass, and it's supposed to be a 3-step drop, and Baker has a false first step with his left foot, and it ends up being a four-step drop. So if you go back and look in 2018, like when we drafted him and him trying to get acclimated to how we wanted to run the offense when he was a rookie, there are interviews of him saying like it's a little bit uncomfortable being under center so much, coming from a Lincoln Riley system that was all shotgun, all pistol. So I just think it's tough for him at his size. And people, I think, just throw a size out there without really making like a conscious effort to make a point. But it's tough with his size to be under center, step back, and then don't even mention like throwing in a play action. Now his back is to the line of scrimmage. He has to turn. He has to make a pro style read. He's got to go through his progressions, and I just think it's a lot for him. When if we could get him in the shotgun, I think that he could excel better and he could make better reads when he just has a little bit more, visibility, considering that his mobility is what it is. If he was able to move like normal, it'd be different. Hopefully he's close this week out of the bye, but I think we just need to try to get his eyes downfield more often and quicker.
Yeah, and something that you were talking about earlier is just like our offense, when you're talking about, the formations that we're in, and the, Baker being under center, Baker being in the back, a lot of it is just like we've seen for 12 weeks up until this bye week, our offense is pretty much the same week in and week out. Sometimes things work great. Sometimes guys break off 70-yard touchdowns like David Njoku in the Chargers game. And some guys go over for 100 yards like DPJ in the Cardinals game. Obviously, bad game. Probably don't want to talk about that too much. And then Jarvis last week. Yeah, another 100-yard game that kind of goes to waste. But there's just, it's almost so predictable. And the stuff that we do get is like, okay, that's good. But you're also looking for more of what we saw with Freddie Kitchens, which was just kind of the unpredictability of like what an offense can do.
Yep.
And even though, we don't want to really go back to Freddie Kitchens, there just needs to be a little bit of that creativity that I don't even know that we really saw too much of it last year. Obviously, we had, before OBJ went out, a couple of trick plays, OBJ sweeps and Jarvis Landry and OBJ throws, but we don't want to like get too much into that kind of trickery. We want to just have creative plays that get guys open. And we need to see Baker make more plays. Quite frankly, obviously, don't want to harp on the injuries. I hate it. I hate talking about the injury of him in general, because he's the one who decided to play, so he's got to be the one who makes plays as well. So, but there are other aspects to what we have going on this week in terms of what we'll have to see offensively.
Well, I honestly think the Baker injury really has just overshadowed a lot of the rest of the season because, and I know like Jarvis is a year older. I understand that I will never go out and say that we have a top 5-10 wide receiving core in the league. But at the same time, we went to the playoffs with this receiving core, with this offensive coordinator. So it's so interesting and almost funny to see, like, basically the same roster composition from last year, especially because we don't have OBJ anymore. And now it's like, well, the offensive coordinator, Stefanski, can't get people open. Our wide receivers have no separation, which all of these things are true in their own, in their own respects. Like, you're going to be able to find plays where our wide receivers are literally blanketed. No one's open. Baker has to scramble. Obviously, it's the NFL. But it's the same team from last year. Outside of, I think Baker's injury has gotten a lot of the spotlight. He touches the ball every play.
Yeah.
Jarvis tore his MCL. He was out. He's been in and out, multiple injuries. Donovan Peoples-Jones, in and out, multiple injuries. Anthony Schwartz, who preseason we were talking about someone who wasn't even going to be incorporated into this scheme. He was going to be a skill player, wide receiver 5 if we needed him to be. Well, now he kind of like, it would be nice if he was a wide receiver 3. He could make a couple catches a game. Had hamstring injuries in preseason. He's been out 3 weeks in concussion protocol. Yeah. So, you've had Nick Chubb on and off the field with COVID, couple injuries. Kareem Hunt missed, 4 or 5 weeks. So it's not really as simple as saying our wide receivers suck. Our wide receivers don't get any separation. Our offensive coordinator and Stefanski can't scheme guys open. It's like, this is the same team that beat the Steelers last year in the playoffs. And I'm like I told you, I'm glad we can't run 13 personnel, because 13 personnel for me is like, I see it have us 3 tight ends on the field. We're going to run the ball, or it's going to be like a 4-yard sit down route to a tight end. And I just get so bored with that. I think that is so the defense literally will give us 4-yard little curl routes to Hooper all day. Like, who wouldn't? And then it's, 3rd and 5 and we're struggling. So lots going on.
I think it's unfortunate, and DPJ comes back from injury in the last game and doesn't look like he's on par with Baker with a couple plays and such.
Right.
You talk about Anthony Schwartz, man, that first game that we had, everyone outside of I don't really recall DPJ in that first game, but man, having Anthony Schwartz and just like our play calling from that game, if you take away the mistakes that we made in that game, offensively, we had a really good day.
Yep. The stuff toward the sideline has been great all year. Like, even in the Denver game, I saw plays toward the sideline where noodle arm Case Keenum couldn't make the throw, but guys were open. And then it's like, I see a crosser over the middle, I see a sit down route, and I get pissed off. But go ahead.
Right. No, and it's just a shame that even if we got Anthony Schwartz back this week, I have the worry of, all right, is he going to have like a I don't know I don't want to call it a DPJ game because it's unfair to like try to criticize DPJ, but I don't know, a warm-up game to come back where he has one good play and then for the rest of the game he's just absent and trying to get back on the same page, which he's a speedy guy. He's obviously he does the kick returns. He no longer needs to do the kick returns. Just have Felton or anyone else do it because at this point, wide receiver wise, we are low and we don't have a deep threat like him. We heard all this talk about how DPJ was going to bust out, and he's had his moments, but the consistency is what we've been asking for, not just from players, but just from coaching and from every aspect of the Browns. And even you and I, Jeff, we talked about the Ravens and the Steelers in a way of, what have they been throughout the last decade? And it's been consistency. And, they've been consistently at the top of this division, and they have consistently been good with no matter who, Joe Flacco, Lamar Jackson, whoever the backup was for that 1 week for the Ravens this past, in the past 3 weeks, I believe, with Lamar out. It's just something that this whole franchise needs in general. And hopefully in these last 5 weeks that we have, hopefully we can get some of that.
It really is chess and checkers to me, though. And here's the thing, which I don't know if it's been talked about enough. It needs to be talked about more, because you could go check our Chiefs reaction. There was a lot of people who thought, if we had OBJ in this Chiefs game, it would have been totally different.
You're referring to the playoff game?
Yeah. Correct? Oh yeah. The playoff game. Sorry.
Yep.
But even the first game though, like there was like an inside shot that he could have played week 1. Like, I don't know.
Well, remember how pissed off you were about that? Because it was like, all week we were hearing, and then it was like an hour before kickoff, and it's like, oh, he's not playing. And
with the way he exited, I think that I put that blame on Stefanski. I think he probably was like, maybe he might have been like, oh, I'm good to go, good, and then last second he was like, who knows with him. But right. I we're not missing him in the passing game. I will definitively say that I did not think we were missing him in the passing game last year down the stretch between the Pittsburgh game and between the Kansas City game. I thought we got looks. I think we're missing him in the running game. I think the 4 games since he's been gone. Cincinnati, Zach Taylor, second-year coach, not really, I don't believe he's defensive minded. Maybe he is, and I just don't know a whole lot about him. They don't really have a conscious game plan to deal with our running attack, 153 yards. Turn around to New England. I do understand that we've been banged up. We haven't had
Nick Chubb, no Kareem Hunt in that game.
Yeah, we haven't had our starters in some games, but you see Bill Belichick, defensive-minded coach, totally takes away our run. We've had even the essence of a threat being out there is what I think we're missing. The top is never off the defense. DPJ's banged up, and then you see in the Baltimore game, we're just going to put Marlon Humphrey on DPJ, our best defensive back, who's now hurt. And Jarvis has never been a deep threat in his career. He basically made his money in Miami, catching balls, screens and behind the line of scrimmage and short routes. And Anthony Schwartz has been out there. So you see these defensive-minded coaches, Harbaugh, Belichick, they know that we do not have a burner over the top that could really take the top off the defense. I think it's hurt our running game more than anything.
Yeah, my only problem with the Patriots game is that first drive, we go and we score, and Dearness has like 4 touches for 50 yards or something.
Yep.
And then we completely get away from it. That's my biggest problem with this whole year. It's like sometimes we have things going, we have certain aspects of the game going for us offensively. It's more inclined for a consistency based off of, play calling and a lot of the stuff up top. I made the point probably when we played the Ravens, how many times did they shoot up to Greg Roman and be like, oh, he's calling plays from up top that are so good. Well, we don't have that with AVP. My problem has been this year with Kevin Stefanski more so than anything. It's just the penalties is a coaching thing. The lack of offensive creativity is a coaching thing. And getting the most out of his players is, that's not necessarily a coaching thing because only they can, drive themselves so far. But you gotta like look at the head guy first, and it's Kevin Stefanski. He's the head coach, And then you look down and you're like, all right, this player, Baker Mayfield, isn't playing well enough. He needs to up his game. All right, Jarvis Landry isn't playing his best game. He needs to up it up. Austin Hooper is getting paid $10 million, and we're going to pay David Njoku next year. I don't want to see Austin Hooper on the field again next year, but there's just a lot of, what has been lacking from last year, which I think was consistency, at least offensively. We had 7+ games early on last year where we scored 30+ points. Then we kind of trickled down a little bit, but we were still scoring at least 2 to 3 touchdowns a game. Like we might not have been putting up 30 every game, but at least we were putting up 17, 20 points. And this year, we've been down in the dumps, barely scoring a touchdown and a field goal. So just it's been a rough go at it, and there needs to be some changes.
My last thing for sure, and I think that we're not asking too much. Like you could implement shotgun packages, you could implement pistol packages like in a bye week. I think that we saw us make a big leap last year out of the bye week under Kevin Stefanski, but I think this is the last thing that I'll leave our viewers with is that I think there's a lot of parallels, and then you see how it's maybe doesn't translate. Baker's first year comes into the league, lights it up, rookie touchdown record at the time. Second year, huge step back. That is like a common thing. People say, sophomore slumps for quarterbacks is literally has a tokened name.
Yeah.
Kevin Stefanski, first year as a head coach, there's no fans in the stadiums, which you can't quantify that. I can't tell you, no fans makes Stefanski a 23% better head coach. I couldn't tell you. But this is his first year operating with fans. And, just similar to players coming in their first season, moving into their second season, teams adjust. So we're going to see how Stefanski readjusts. But it's like, I actually was not ready to throw, Baker away in the second year because I understood that people were going to have him scouted. I understood our offensive line wasn't that good that year. So I'm on the same boat. I think me and you can agree on that. We're not, there's no point we can't start doing this as fans. And that's what I'll encourage you to do out there. If you go on Twitter, if you go on Instagram, if you make content, don't come on here and be like, people got to go. I know we've done it. I know we've said it. The Joe Woods might be on the hot seat. That's a little silly. I think that what me and you miss with our predictions this year is that success in the NFL is rarely linear. Usually it's like up, down, besides, Tom Brady, dude's been going up his whole career. There's a couple rare exceptions, but it's like, we're not going to be 10-6, 11-5 every year in the first round of the playoffs or, in a couple plays away from the AFC Championship game. So I think we just need to calm it down. We got a good base here. We got a great general manager. We got good coaches from what we've seen for the most part. And I think me and you agree. Win the division games, beat the Raiders. And if we could lose by 80 on Christmas, I would not care. I literally would not care. I'll be eating in the other room. But if we could win, if we go 4-1, we might be 4-1 might put you in the first seed in the AFC for crying out loud. So lots going on. We'll be back Friday.
Yeah. And that's a great sentiment. I'll touch on that too about, no one's saying blow it up. No one is saying blow it up. Kevin Stefanski get fired, whatever, Andrew Berry, whatever. But my biggest thing is, what Jeff just said, the ups and the downs. It's important to keep those ups and downs in perspective because, yes, Kevin Stefanski showed us what he can do. Coach of the year, great. This year, he's taken a step back. But there's a lot of times in life where you just have to take steps back and reevaluate what's going on with maybe it's yourself, your work life, whatever.
Right.
And then continue to progress. If we take a step back this year, like we have, that's fine. Obviously, we had high expectations. Those things happen. We acknowledge that. We move on. Next year, and we're not saying, next year, we're already planning for next year. But watch after this bye week. Let's see if Kevin Stefanski, took that step back, reevaluate what he had done in the first 12 weeks, and let's see what these next 5 weeks hold for us and, hopefully maybe onward. But with that being said, Jeff, you're all good?
Yeah, and even to add just one more point to that, like you saw Andrew Berry do that exact thing last year. Like we had 4 or 5 turnovers in the Steelers playoff game. How many defensive pieces did we add this year? 2 through the draft, 2, 3 through, 3 through the offseason. So you got to step back. That's a great point. Reevaluate. Improvements have to be made. It's not like we're going to sit here and be like, let's keep running 13 the rest of the year, like we have talked about. Hopefully, that's not the case moving forward.
Yeah, and it all takes time. So, with that all being said, like I said at the top of the show, guys, please make sure that you are subscribing, hitting the bell notification, and leaving a like, leaving a comment. What do you guys think needs to happen for this Browns team to win 4 out of the next 5 games, hopefully, or for just the entire rest of the season? What needs to be done in order to get wins and get the job done? So, with that all being said, thank you, and we'll catch you in the next one. Peace.